everyone, and welcome to Lead Dev Live. Thank you so much for that brilliant introduction. We're so glad you're here. My name's Adrienne, and I'll be your host for our panel on one-on-ones this morning. Quesi, Alexandra, Spencer, and I have some really exciting ideas and resources to share with you today. But first, let's meet our panelists. I want to go around the circle and have each of you introduce yourselves. Please tell us where you're working currently, your job title, how many direct reports you have, how many teams you lead, and I'd particularly love to hear, how do you measure success in your org, or how is success measured for you? And let's start with Alexandra.
Hi, I'm Alexandra. I work as an engineering manager at Google. My team is 6 engineers, and we build the plugin for cloud code. So if you use GCP, or even if you don't and you use IntelliJ, please use us. Success is measured for our org when our customers are happy, when we have more and more people using the plugin. And success for me is when my team is happy and fruitful.
Love it.
Hi, I am Kwasi. I am the founder and CEO of Groovetime. It's a startup that I started early on this year, blending two passions of mine, technology and dance. We are a virtual dance studio in your pocket. So if you've ever wondered, like, how do I actually get the physical dance studio experience, on my phone? Yeah, so Groovetime is for you. So I started this company, and we're currently 4. So it's a very small team, probably the smallest team that I've had. But I've been very, very hands-on with this team. And so basically it's cross-functional. I have a designer, I have an engineer, and I have someone in BD and partnerships. And I do one-on-ones. In fact, I call them personal time, just trying to shift things a little bit so it sounds or it feels more intimate. And we do 45 minutes every week. And it's non-negotiable. We have it, we sit down and we talk. And for me, at this early stage, the important thing I use one-on-ones for is to align the team, just get the team to believe. We're at the stage where it's really important to actually believe in the mission and to push through, hurdles and obstacles. So I do a lot of debugging, mental debugging and emotional debugging in personal time. And it's basically the result I want to see is that the team is clicking as one brain, right? It's easy enough for one person to be executing, but when you have a team that's clicking and executing together, that's just magic. And so that's what I'm trying to engineer with personal time.
Awesome. How about you, Spencer? How big's your team? Where are you working? How do you define Zest?
So I work at Mailchimp. I'm a senior engineering manager at Mailchimp. I was with a company before this, Reaction Commerce. It was an open source distributed first team. We were just acquired by Mailchimp a few months ago. I have 8 directs right now. I would say I measure success, or the team measures success, similar to what Alexandra was talking about. But we're looking at the success of our customers. How do we make their jobs easier, empower them to do things that they couldn't do before?
Love it. Thank you so much, Spencer. Thank you all. So, hey again, everyone, I'm Adrienne. I'm an experienced leader of remote dev development and ops teams. As of this week, I am looking for my next role. So that's been a pretty exciting announcement to share with the community on Monday, and it's been amazing to get the support from you all. My primary experience is in directly leading the core platform and DevOps teams at 2 different companies reporting to CTO. And I'm excited to be talking about one-on-ones today because I brought the culture of one-on-ones to both organizations, both of my most recent companies, and it demonstrably helped us improve our culture and actually ship faster, which is something I talked about in my first talk at Lead Dev in 2018, which was on one-on-ones. So I'm super, super excited to talk with you about them today and talk with this amazing panelist. They have some great resources, great ideas. They have gotten real with their people, and we're going to get real with you today. So first, Let's talk about kind of the table stakes for one-on-ones, the basics. I want us to get all on the same page about how we're working together and how we're thinking about one-on-ones so that you see the kind of stage that we set for the extraordinary success we have in our one-on-ones, right? So there are some things we have in common that we're all doing that enable us to do well and to really create a place for psychological safety and shared understanding and transparency. So let's talk about those basics, those table stakes. What are one-on-ones? One-on-ones are intentional, scheduled time for a manager and their direct report to meet and discuss their work together. The best one-on-ones are conversations that are of substance, where you actually say something that matters, where you share how things are really going, and you're able to get ahead of issues before they become real problems on their team. They're also where you can learn how to really support your direct, where you can learn where their passion lies and how they want to level up at your org. So you can start looking for those opportunities. For my teams, I advocate weekly one-on-ones that last 45 minutes with each of your direct reports, no matter how senior they are. So I want to open it up to the group and talk about those basics. What do y'all think? How often do you do your one-on-ones? How long? What are the basics as far as you're concerned? And let's start with Alexandra.
Yeah. So I also do mine weekly. They're usually 45 minutes. If we have kind of a weird week, we might do 30 minutes. And for more development and perf conversations, we definitely make them an hour. I think of this as kind of like retro for your week with an individual. Retro is my favorite team meeting. That's a whole different panel. So I do have docs that are like a one-to-one doc with my people. I'm lucky enough to work for a company that makes a lot of templates in Google Docs. So I have some pretty ones in there. And then I have a question each week. Sometimes, we just do like my favorite question, how are you feeling? And so I'm partial to starting with, just a little like, how was your weekend, or what are you working on at the moment? I know we do not stay in status mode for more than a couple minutes, but sometimes it's helpful to kind of eke them into how what you're working on is impacting everything that's going on for you in your brain. And my biggest hope is that I get out like the little thoughts that you have, like fissures before they turn into cracks. So like last week, people were talking to me and they were like, what does leadership really think about the fact that we just had to take a week off to tackle all of our bugs? Do they hate us? Do we think we have a terrible product? And when a couple people said that to me, I was like, this is something I need to go address immediately. So, yeah.
That is outstanding. I love that language. My hope is to get out fissures before they turn into cracks. That is beautiful. All right, how about you, Quesi? What are the table stakes as far as you're concerned? I know you said a little bit in your intro, but tell us a little bit more.
Yeah. I just really love what Alexandra said. Just like you, it really is for me when I do one-on-ones. I'm essentially on a mission to extract as much of the psyche of my direct as possible, and it's a lot of it is because most people don't actually talk. So personal time, one-on-one time, is a time I'm really trying to debug the human system, not this larger system, because a lot of what people feel, what's going on in their lives around work actually affects their work. And so, for me, it's I lead with, different things. Sometimes I'll start with, how are you doing? Or the lead up to the one-on-one, we're already having conversation around, hey, I might want to maybe discuss this with you, run this through, by you. So we're already prepping psychologically and emotionally for that conversation. And usually it's either in the form of a doc or, over Slack, we're just like, we have this running almost like a one-on-one channel where it's just like our stream of consciousness, right? And we pick from, it's almost like prioritizing aspects that we want to discuss. And then come the day, I usually have a framework where I'm trying to gauge their energy along 3 lines. It's impact, speed, and fun. The last one sounds a little quirky, but it's really important that people enjoy what they do. The moment people stop enjoying what they do, you have a problem. And so people want to have impact, whatever impact means. So for example, with what Alexandra said, if someone feels like, well, why is management assigning us to bugs as opposed to what's the deal there? Like, is it, then you want to think, is it impacting like their sense of speed or impact? So I'm always trying to gauge along those lines, and it helps me go back and say, okay, this almost like a power bar for each line. How are people feeling? And so, yeah, that's how I do my one-on-ones. Is really just a conversation. Most people don't think it is a one-on-one. They usually say it's therapy. So usually some of my directs would say, well, when is our next therapy session? I'm like, okay, it's not meant to. That's not how I see it, but sure, yeah.
And are you doing these weekly? Are you allocating a certain amount of time? Cool. Awesome. How about you, Spencer? What are the table stakes for one-on-ones as far as you're concerned?
So first off, I just feel like I should be taking notes here. I'm learning so much. I love what Alexandra said about fissures and cracks, and just catching those before they become problems is just so key. I just love that. For me, some of the table stakes here, I do them weekly. Sounds like similar to Quesi and Alexandra. Mine are 30 minutes. I may have to consider bumping up to 45 minutes though after hearing these two. I have kind of three essential parts of the one-on-one. So I always start with a check-in. It sounds similar to the questions that Alexandra's asking. So frequently we'll do a check-in of sorts that may be like a traffic light type of thing. How are you feeling? Red, yellow, green. But trying to get to that underlying kind of emotional state of the person that I'm talking with. It's really important. You can't start talking about business things or how things are going in the organization if somebody has stuff going on at home that's kind of preventing that. I do have a shared agenda, so we have like essentially a running document that we work on together. That's another, I think, really important piece. And then the last thing that I'd say here is we have a section of that agenda that's just reserved for follow-ups. So making sure that when someone brings something up, we put it there, and it may not come up next week. It may not come up for a couple of weeks, but it gives me a place that I can scroll to and just see, okay, what was it that we've, promised that we're going to do? Either me for them or, them for them or something like that. So that follow-up section, I think, is really important.
That is terrific. Thank you so much. Thanks for setting the stage for our conversation before we dig in, y'all. It's really great to hear that from you, and great to hear that we already have some alignment on practices that we think help our orgs and our teams. So let's turn to some of the meatier questions, if you will, the tofuier questions, as I might say. So my first question, I really want to kick this off by talking about measurement, because this is a question I get a lot. As engineers, we love to measure things. We want to know if we are being effective. We want to know if the thing that we are doing is worth doing. And so to that end, how do you know if your one-on-ones are going well and if they're useful for you and your direct report? How do you evaluate the success of your one-on-ones?
Yeah, this is actually one of my favorite topics within one-on-ones because I struggled with this. I struggled with not knowing how I really was doing with one-on-ones, partly because my directs wouldn't tell me, because they really honestly didn't really understand why one-on-ones. It felt good sometimes, but I don't think they had a structured way to say, okay, do this better, do this better. Also, my managers, weren't in my one-on-one, so they couldn't give me as much feedback. So it's this kind of black box, and I'm in this black box, and it's hard for me to measure. And so what I came up with was a set of questions I would ask myself, and then grade myself on it. And I call this the scorecard. Maybe it sounds too onerous, but you can call it whatever you want. But it's a way to measure how you think you executed on the one-on-ones. And so I have 5 questions that I ask myself. First thing I ask is, did the team member do most of the talking? And for me, it's you can tell, if you did most of the, kind of explaining or talking, or it was a team member. It is their time. This is why I call it personal time at Groovetime. Like, I really want to drive home the fact that I want you to just emote, right? To come out and explain and talk about what's going on. And so usually I give myself a pass fail. It's not, you can grade yourself however you want, but for me, it's did I do it, or did it happen, or did it not happen? The second question I ask myself is, was I and the team member aligned? Were we aligned on the takeaways? And usually there's in my one-on-ones, we go through a story arc. There's almost like the beginning and the dramatic, kind of sequence, and then there's the, resolution. And sometimes it might feel like you have resolved, or you're going away with the same perspectives, but you may not be. And so it's important to cross-check and heat check on that and say, we were actually aligned, and we perceive things the same way, and we're taking away the same things. The third question I ask myself is, did the team member, this might feel a little fuzzy, did the team member leave with a renewed sense of purpose and motivation? And I think for me, I don't want anyone to leave my personal time, feeling worse than they did coming in, right? And that you just have to be really in tune with how your team member is doing emotionally. And so some, people come in feeling like, they have a big problem they're trying to solve. And so they feel defeated, right? And so the goal is to get them on the trajectory towards self-confidence, right? And so there's always this input and output. If I can grade myself and say, were they better leaving the one-on-one than they came in, then it's a pass. If not, then I need some work there. The fourth question would be, did we come up with shared action items? And this is really important, having a doc, for example, that chronicles everything we discussed and the things that I need to work on. And so it's not just about the team member doing X, Y, Z. It's I commit to doing X, Y, Z also. And if you come away feeling like the direct report is the only one that has action items, that's a red flag for me, because I feel like there's always something I'm doing. If my direct is not successful, then usually it's a reflection of me, not so much them. And then the last question I ask is, and this is tricky, right? Because you will have a lot of people emoting in personal time, telling you about their perspectives. But again, it's only one person's perspective. They might be talking to people, they might be talking about other colleagues and all. And so it's really important to, while you're being supportive, always back channel and check, right? And so I take my notes and say, okay, this is how so-and-so felt about what's going on. Then I'll go back and verify, with other people if this is the same, if this is actually true. That makes my action items even more practical and, targeted, if you will. So that's my scorecard.
Oh, I love that scorecard, Quesi. I think everyone who just heard that is going to want to steal that. I want to steal it. In my next role, I am going to be using that to evaluate myself. There were a couple things you said. I literally wrote in my note, ooh, that one stabbed me in the heart. Because one-on-ones are a time for feedback, right? We want to be able to give feedback. And if I am following your yes or no for did the team member leave with a renewed sense of purpose and motivation, I need to be really careful if I'm using that one-on-one to give feedback, because I both need to give potentially difficult personal feedback and still ensure that they left with that renewed sense of purpose and motivation. So that is terrific. Okay, cool. Let's go on to the next question. So as I mentioned, I had brought one-on-ones to my former orgs and felt this renewed sense of purpose and connection and transparency. And we were actually delivering better code faster. We literally had fewer bugs and better releases when we started doing one-on-ones. But it wasn't easy necessarily to bring one-on-ones. Management can be reluctant to invest the time, and reports don't always see the utility in one-on-ones. So how have you advocated for the practice of one-on-ones in your organization? What kind of experience have you had doing that?
So I think bringing one-on-ones is one of my favorite things, because one-on-ones and perf are my favorite part of my job. Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment in terms of perf, but so I've had a couple different ways that this has played out in terms of pushback on one-on-ones. The first one has been actual engineers not wanting to do them. And I think that this is really important for your first one-on-one, because everyone is, when you get a new manager, knows that you're going to have a first meeting with them. Like no one's going to give you pushback on that. Fingers crossed. So in that meeting, talk to them about the way that you want to meet, right? Like, I want to meet weekly, and I want to meet for 45 minutes. And when you get pushback on that, it's really important to understand why. Did this person have like a poor relationship with their manager in the past? Or did they have one-on-ones that were only like, once a quarter, and they weren't super useful, and they were just forced to talk about nothing, so that you can understand where they're coming from. Did they never have a one-on-one before in their life? Or do they feel like they don't really need you or need to improve? These are issues you may need to tackle and a little bit differently. But getting that context up front will help you immensely. And so if you have someone who doesn't really want to do a one-on-one, or at least like at a good cadence that you prefer, building trust outside of one-on-ones can be really important. So championing them in meetings. So like making sure that they know that you're behind them, or syncing up with them in the hallway. Like, hey, how did you feel like that went? Stopping by their desk. Like, are you feeling like you have too much work? Like those kinds of things to build tiny bits of trust, and not encroach too far to wherever their sensitivities lie around one-on-ones. And then the other thing is, like, everyone also knows that they're going to have a meeting around perf. Hopefully they also think they'll get one about development, but like I said, some people feel that they don't either need to improve or don't need you to improve. And so at least you'll have perf with them. Talk to them during perf. Talk to them about how you'd like them to improve, what you saw happening, and kind of build from there. One of my favorite tricks is it's kind of a nasty word here, but methods of doing this is to find out what they're okay with. Are they okay with meeting once a month? And like I said, make that meeting really lovely for them. Like, let them talk, but don't like put them on the spot. And then kind of make it more frequent. Some of my people were just okay with half an hour one-on-ones. And so I like subtly made them 35 or 40 minutes. Another thing is to make sure you have 5 minutes between your one-on-ones if you're going to do them all in one day, because your brain at the end of the day will not remember anything. So you need that 5 minutes to write down as much as humanly possible. And then the other thing is to make your one-on-ones great for the people on your team. If they are not really sure how to do it yet, is to give them vision, give them part of yourself. Let them feel like you are showing them under the covers of your job. Like, we're all aiming for transparency all the time, but give that to them, and they will start to feel better. One, they'll want to do one-on-ones because they'll want to know what's happening next. And two, they'll actually tell you how they feel about those things. I shop vision ideas around my team all the time before I actually announce it. I'm like, what do you think if in Q4 we did a 3-week hackathon? And then people are like, oh God, that's horrible. And I'm like, never mind. I never thought of it. It wasn't my idea. So they're a really great time for that. If your manager, not your manager, if kind of the like establishment as a whole, right? So I work at Google, so it's kind of huge, but I have worked at smaller companies before. And it can be really painful if your peer managers are not also doing one-on-ones. It can lead to kind of stress between teams of like, why do I get this and you don't, or like that kind of a thing. So I'd say working with your peer managers is really important to find out what they're doing, why they're doing it, especially because, there's team mobility. You might inherit someone who just feels like, what are you doing? And making sure that like everyone in the org above you as well is communicating. Here's one thing that I have fallen into time and time again. You feel there are 2 more one-on-ones that you need to do every week that are not your people. So let's say you have a team of 4, you will be doing 6 one-on-ones a week. Those 2, one of them is with yourself, which is like retro for yourself for the week. Think about what you've done. So I have a one-on-one doc for myself as well. And it has kind of like, Google grades us on those like 10 attributes. So I have all those at the top. So I read through them every week. And then also I can put in things I've learned, things I'm going to do next, my micro accomplishments. So when it comes to perf, I know what I did. And then the other thing you're going to do is with your manager. And you're going to feel like if you're busy, your manager, especially if it's a small organization, you're reporting to a VP or the C-suite or director or whatever it is, that they don't have time to talk to you. And that's not true. They don't have time not to talk to you. And these should be an especially long one-on-one in my personal opinion, because they are going to get to what are the people on your team feeling, and then you have to get to what you're feeling. You have to get feedback. You have to talk about strategy and vision, like get from above, from below, these kinds of like where the rubber meets the road is your one-on-one with your manager. And I have felt that every time that I've been like, oh, I don't need to, it's okay. And like, I didn't have a scheduled one and I went a couple of weeks without having it. You start to build this, like, it's horrible, this resentment of feeling like your manager doesn't know who you are and like is doing things behind your back almost. And like, so you need to schedule those one-on-ones and do them no matter what. It'll give you shared vision, shared strategy, just help with everything.
That is brilliant. It was really exciting to hear you share that, Alexandra, because there's so much in what you shared in it. It's so cohered with my experience to doing those little things outside of formal meetings to show that you care, to show that you personally invested in this person. And then I love how you described it. You're so great with language. There are 2 other essential one-on-ones each week. The one with yourself, brilliant, and the one with your manager, and really emphasizing the importance. So managers, it goes both ways. If you know that your report is they could potentially have this resentment engendered in them, show them that they matter to you by making their one-on-ones a priority. They do so much for your team to be a force multiplier and support their folks. That's what you owe to them. I love that. Thank you so much. All right. Go ahead.
I often tell my people that I am a benefit to them, just like dental. The org pays me to keep them happy so they can do the actual work that we sell. So I'm essentially like, their dental insurance. So they should use me that way.
Oh my gosh, that's brilliant. I love it. Kwasi, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I apologize. I was about to say, yeah, that's important. Like, you're not the dentist, you're the dental insurance. Because, dentists, I don't know, I'm terrified of the dentists.
Well, coronavirus has given us a reason to delay it a little bit longer.
Yeah.
All right. So we've talked about how to measure, and Quesi has given us incredible ideas there. We've talked about the challenges of getting buy-in and how to make the meeting more successful. I want to use kind of the last major bit of our time before we do Q&A to talk about making the space to have a conversation that matters, to have time together where you can really hear what's up. So because we know that it's important to use these one-on-ones to get ahead of issues before they become real problems, to hear the fissures before they become the cracks. So I want to hear, how do you encourage psychological safety in your one-on-ones so that your direct reports feel like they can really open up and share? How do you take it beyond that status report to have a conversation that matters?
So I love this question. I think it's so important. There's a couple different areas I think that it's just critical to establish psychological safety in. The first one is environment. If you don't have a safe environment, it's going to be hard to have a safe conversation. And the second one I would say is that relationship. So you have to establish a relationship. A one-on-one is not just a transactional meeting. It can't just be a transactional relationship where you get the things that you need from your teammate and they get the things that they need from you. You have to establish that relationship before you can have those meaningful conversations. So with my one-on-ones, I have a set of traditions that we established during that first one-on-one. And so some of these are about that environment. So one of them is that we're always going to meet in a quiet place. I've been remote for about 6 years now. And so for me, that means I'm probably going to have one-on-ones from my house. I'm not going to take one-on-one from the coffee shop, which I do enjoy working in a coffee shop when it's not in the middle of a pandemic. But I will take that meeting from a place where I can have a confidential conversation, and sometimes a difficult conversation. Another piece of that environment, I think, is making sure that you remove as many distractions as possible. So for me, what that means is I'm going to have 2 windows open during this one-on-one. The first one's going to be the video screen, so that I can see, face-to-face the person that I'm talking with. And the second one is going to be our shared set of notes. I'm not going to open Slack. I'm not going to be working on other documents. I'm not going to be checking email. I think that bridges the gap a little bit between the kind of relationship psychological safety and that environment psychological safety. If someone can tell that you're doing something else in the middle of their one-on-one, you're starting to shatter that trust that they have. And they're like, oh, maybe I'm not important enough for this. Maybe I'm, just kind of a second thing. They're too busy for me. You start to lose some of that trust that you built up over time with that person. So it's incredibly important, I think, that you stay in that moment and expect that from your teammate as well. They shouldn't be doing work. If they have something that's so important that they need to reschedule, you can reschedule. And so that's the third tradition that I would say here is we'll reschedule instead of skipping. So from my perspective, that's me saying this is important enough that even if I have a conflict, I'm still going to make time for this. I'll make time a different time. You're busy. Your team is very busy. This is probably the most important meeting of your. Make time for it. And then the last thing I would say is being prepared. So by taking 5 minutes or 10 minutes to review the follow-ups that you've had from a previous meeting, review notes that you have from your direct, or look through your Slack chat history. Just showing up with a little bit of preparation goes a really long way towards establishing that trust that you have with your teammate. Those are, I would say, the traditions that I have. I think it's not the only thing that you need to do to establish psychological safety, but it goes a long ways towards establishing that safe environment and that safe relationship.
I love that, Spencer. Thank you for sharing. So just to be clear, do you use that initial conversation to lay out the traditions? And do you, on any kind of cadence, bring up the traditions? If you feel like maybe you've lost sight of one, will you say, like, this is what I want for our time together?
That's a great question. So yeah, that first one-on-one I have with someone is a time when we'll talk about it. And I like the term traditions because these aren't hard and fast rules. Like, I want to have a discussion with my teammate. If there's something like, one of my traditions is we're going to meet with our cameras on. That works for a lot of people, but it doesn't work for everyone. Not everybody wants to have that camera on all the time. So it's something that you need to establish, I think, between yourself and the person that you're working with. So we'll go over the traditions during that first one-on-one, and then we leave them at the bottom of our document. So I mentioned that I've got a running document that both myself can see and my teammate can see. And the traditions is in there forever. So we just kind of put those there. We'll revisit them if we need to. But typically, once that set of traditions has been established, we don't have to go back too often.
I love that. That's brilliant. Alexandra, Quesi, did y'all have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I really loved what you said, Spencer. And one of the things that I wouldn't call it tradition per se, but I do in the beginning of every one-on-one is really to actually recap. So I found that it actually is a hit with my team members where they feel like, oh, it wasn't just like this, we just talked last week and you said a bunch of things that you would do and then poof, nothing happened. So usually I try to recap, almost like assessing myself. So I did this, like I owed you this thing, or actually I promised you this thing, and I'm still kind of working on it, but I will let you know that I'm working on it. And it builds that trust, because the worst thing is when someone really becomes vulnerable and then they, give you the good and they think you're going to do something with it and you don't do it, right? And it just becomes like, you've got this notebook, has all the notes, or document that has all the notes, not doing much, to change my situation, right? And so holding myself really aggressively accountable for that and making it almost seem like I am their report, where it's like, I'm following up on this thing, I got it done, how do you feel, about it? I try to set that at the beginning too.
That is awesome.
I'll do a slight plug for some Google products. I leave all of my one-on-one docs open until I capture the tasks I need to do from them, or the reminders. Like, there are things like, oh, maybe in October we'll talk about this again or something, right? I use tasks and reminders on GCal to do those kinds of things. Reminders for things way in the future that are just like, put it in my brain, and then tasks for things I need to get done this week so that I can actually slot them in and know that they're going to get done in time. But I also I leave that tab open until I do it, and I try to close all my tabs except for 2 every night. So
awesome, love it. Okay, so there is some amazing energy happening in the one-on-ones channel right now and in the general channel for our panel, y'all. So I just want to say thank you again to everyone watching this for engaging, for asking us questions, for pushing us to go even deeper. I've got some great questions I want to share with the panelists. So we'll just go around. We're going to use our remaining 10 minutes to answer as many of these as we can and give you as much expert advice as we possibly can. So I want to start with a tactical one. Someone asks, is it better to have one-on-ones at the beginning of the week or the end? Also, do you try to have one-on-ones with all your reports on the same day or scattered throughout the week? And I'll answer this one and then throw it out. In terms of beginning or the end of the week, I am not super opinionated, but one thing that I have noticed that works really well for me is that I want to give my direct reports the best version of me. And if I can possibly get that to align with them in terms of time of day for them, I want to give them morning Adrienne because I am a morning person. So if they are remotely open to meeting with me in the morning, I know I will be giving them my best. If they want to meet with me at 2 p.m., my time, I will give it my best shot, but I will know it will not be my best time of day. And in terms of doing them all at once or scattered throughout the week, I remember what Alexandra said about you want to build in that time to make sure you get down your notes and your follow-ups. If I've got all my one-on-ones, boom, 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 and they are intense conversations, I am going to be depleted, y'all. So I need a little bit of time. I like to stagger mine throughout the week. I want to open it up to the group. What do y'all think?
Wow, this is such a good question. Go ahead. No, Alexandra, take that.
I do something a little bit weird. A lot of people schedule recurring meetings. I don't. I duplicate the one from last week and then I move it to a different time on the calendar, especially because I want them to be in a different order every week. Because, and this is going to be in maybe a taboo subject, but you always have someone, or you don't always, you may have someone on your team who depletes you a little bit more than other people. And then the person that goes right after them every week gets you right after that. And so, being able to say, like, I don't want you to have to do that every week. And I try to do at least 4 business days between one-on-ones. I do take advantage of, like, if someone's on vacation, I'll do their one-on-one the next week on like Monday or Tuesday so that I get to see them again, right? And then I can kind of like keep them on that Tuesday, Wednesday until they slip into a Thursday. We don't do meetings on Fridays, so I can't let anything slip past Thursday. So sometimes it does happen. I have 6 one-on-ones back to back to back on Thursday with like maybe 10 minutes for lunch. It's not ideal. Those evenings I have done, maybe not the best in my personal life. So I try not to do it, but.
Yeah, that's so great. I don't even know where to start, but actually, so just to be short, I do try to not have as many back-to-back one-on-ones because I try to be emotionally invested in my one-on-ones, and you don't know what to go up against, honestly, in a conversation, especially because most people don't talk until you kind of, dig in there a little bit. Try to kind of space them out. At the same time, I also note that actually the same as you have morning people and you have people who are just more in tune with themselves at the beginning of the week as opposed to the end of the week. So I'll give an example that, I had one team member who literally wanted closure at the end of the week because they really needed a lot of validation, on how they were doing and so on. And so it stressed them out to just go through the week and things happened. And then they had to go through the weekend thinking about, oh gosh, I didn't do a good job type of thing. And it literally was causing sleepless nights, which is, strange by some standards, but this is just how this person was made up. Amazing performer, don't get me wrong. And so I tended to want to do one-on-ones, closer to the end of the week. So we would talk through things. And usually it was like, her being hard on herself, right? And it was just me trying to just debug that situation. So it gave her that kind of that ease into the weekend. But some people are also just like, I just want to have that frame of mind at the beginning of the week, so I can perform the rest of the week. of course, I can't cater to all of those configurations, but I'm very cognizant of how people operate on a kind of a weekly cadence. Some people are more like late bloomers in the week. Some are, kind of more front loaded.
Yeah, I love it. Spencer, did you have anything you wanted to add about cadence and timing?
The only thing I'd add here is it's easier to reschedule a meeting that happens during the week. So if you're scheduled for later on Thursday or Friday and something comes up, it's going to be really difficult to reschedule that one-on-one. And so I think it's really important that you're able to schedule those things. So I tend to schedule my meetings either earlier Thursday or before, just so that we do have that opportunity to reschedule if we can.
I love it. Okay, so I feel like Alexandra is keeping it really real, and I love that. And I want to, the next question I ask y'all, I want to kind of reflect and play to that. So our audience is curious, what is the difference between self one-on-ones and manager one-on-ones? And they ask in particular, like, what do you focus on for your self one-on-ones versus what do you present to your manager? And another person asked about skip level one-on-ones, up and down, and that's where your manager will interview your direct reports and get the deets. So I think these questions both kind of go together about self-evaluation and the version you present to yourself. And I'll add even one more layer. Do you feel like you present the same version to your reports as you do to yourself, as you do to your manager? And do you seek to have those be a unified vision? Who wants to attack this one?
I feel like Spencer's had to go last every time, and that's not fair.
All right. Nice softball question you got here for us. Certainly, I think in my head, I present the same version of myself to everyone. But I think if I'm honest, I'm certainly not doing that, at least not perfectly. I think there's different sides that different people see, and your boss may have different sets of expectations than maybe your reports do. And it's certainly tempting. I would say I fall into this a lot. I don't know whether it's bad or neutral, but it's tempting to show, what you think somebody else wants to see to those people, try to craft I wouldn't even say the best version of myself, but to craft the best version of myself that I think, let's say a skip level meeting wants or something like that.
Love it.
What was the rest
Other
of that
thoughts?
question?
Well, I do have one other question that I think could really help our audience if we want to just skip to that one. And we can keep the conversation going in Slack after. Remember, we're going to be around y'all. So let me just ask this last question of the group. And I think it may go a little bit more towards Quesi. But somebody wanted an example of that cross-checking that you do. When you think about your scorecard in that fifth one, I love the way you put it. I am only hearing one perspective and I want to cross-check. How do you do that in your org and on your team?
Brilliant question. And I actually had that on the scorecard because I've been hurt by that, many times. So my makeup is such that I tend to trust people. And I think every emotion is valid. It just has an underpinning that I'm trying to unearth. And so my weakness sometimes is kind of over believing, what I'm hearing. And in truth, when, people are talking about their perspectives, it really is their perspective. And your job as a manager, a lot of the time is to also provide a certain aspect of the perspective that they don't have. For example, if someone misunderstands like a business decision, for example, it's your job to, add some color to it. And so typically something like that will come up, that cross-check is important if, let's say there are team dynamics that need to be debugged. An example is I feel like so-and-so is not pulling their weight and it's affecting my work, right? And it's, I just feel like, he or she is just not performing, and they're not trying to say, do something dire or anything, but it's just, it's a frustration. And then, so that may be from their perspective, but then maybe other people in the team might actually feel like, oh, so-and-so, that same so-and-so is actually being very helpful. they actually helped me on my project, right? Or they basically put everything on on hold to help me. And so very practically, this happened in one of my teams where someone actually was very selfless. That so-and-so was very selfless, putting stuff that they were doing with that person I spoke to in the one-on-one to go help other people, right? And so it became this, it's not that the person isn't pulling their weight. Actually, they actually felt like they needed to help other people and others, which is actually something to be celebrated. So that knowledge, allowed me to then into the one-on-one, the next week to explain, add more context. So had I been just like, oh yeah, this so-and-so isn't pulling there, I'm going to have a conversation with her and, we're going to solve this problem and we're going to, it would not have been the right approach, right? And so it's almost like, I believe you, I believe your perspective, I'm going to go verify. I'll come back and say, hey, by the way, it so happens that, this is actually what was really happening. And then share that. It gives that other person empathy. And then using that as a springboard to helping them be more empathetic in the team. Hopefully that answers the question.
That is a wrap, y'all. Thank you so much to our amazing panelists. We're going to hop on over to Slack and keep answering the questions there. Have a great rest of your day at Lead Dev Life.